Welcome to Points to Ponder. My guest today is my good friend and colleague, the Reverend R.J. Powell. R.J., will you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, Gayle. Thanks for having me. I am one of the priests at St. James Episcopal Church here in Knoxville, Tennessee. And I also am one of the chaplains over at Tyson House, which is an Episcopal and Lutheran campus ministry at the University of Tennessee, also here in Knoxville. And so I've been here in Knoxville for about 5 years. And me and my husband moved here after I finished seminary at Sewanee, and been involved with all kinds of life here in Diocese of East Tennessee since then. And before that, I lived in Johnson City for about 12 years. And before that, I grew up in just outside of Richmond, Virginia.
Good. Mm-hmm. Well, thanks for being with me today. This is a video in a series that we've been doing on Points to Ponder about truth as it relates to justice, not an abstract truth, but the kind of truth that is the reality of experience and experiencing life with all of its ups and downs. And so the topic today is a point about inner truth, which at first may seem not to have much to do with justice. And yet, unless we are strong in that inner truth, it is difficult for us to be really a good advocate for justice and a good and the ability to live justly. So the quote that came to mind when I thought about inner truth is a quote from Parker Palmer, and it goes like this: "I want my inner truth to be the plumb line for the choices I make about my life, about the work that I do and how I do it, about the relationships I enter into and how I conduct them." So I know that you have experience with living that quote. So tell us about it.
Yeah. I never read this quote, I don't think, or I don't remember reading this quote before, but I have read quite a bit of Parker Palmer. So I probably have, and just maybe didn't remember it. But yeah, it does resonate quite a bit with my own personal story and my own life experience, being a gay person and growing up in a very conservative environment, family, and coming to terms with who I am in literally my inner truth, that my actual who I have discovered myself to be, and reconciling that with, I guess, really the rest of life. So recognizing that the truth about who I am as a gay person, and what that means in relationship to my family, to friends, to my faith practice, and so that's been a long journey to get there. I didn't just I wasn't just ready to come out of the oven already baked. It took a while to mix those ingredients around, and it was some struggle to figure out what that meant for me. And I don't know that we're ever fully. I don't think we're fully realized through our whole lives. I think that's an ongoing process. Some people might call that salvation. At least a process of salvation, discovering who we are in God. But for me, as I have discovered, I guess, who I am and who God made me to be, the growing up, being gay was not an acceptable option. And so when I had realized that part of me was different, I guess that was probably middle school range, something around there. That was something that I needed to hide. It was something that I needed to choose to be or choose not to be. And so I struggled with that part of myself, and I kind of developed a self-loathing, a hatred for that part of who I am, which was pretty detrimental to your mental health and to your physical health, and it's all connected. And so struggling with that through high school, through college years, And then even coming into seminary, so I went to seminary twice. Some people don't realize that. I went to Emmanuel Seminary, which is up in Johnson City. It's a Christian Church of Christ school. And it was there that I really had to come to terms with that part of myself. If I was really going to be honest with that part of myself that I didn't want to face, but also going into being a church leader in that tradition, could I hold these things and have this kind of division within myself? And I just couldn't hold that. I couldn't hold those apart from one another anymore. And so it was there that I came out with that truth, a truth that I knew about myself, a truth that I tried to hide and tried to suppress, but really discovering in doing so, I found a new resilience for the life that God wanted and intended for me to have. It was really connected with that spiritual life. And finding a community in the Episcopal Church, I landed in the Episcopal Church during that same time, a community that supported me through that. And discovering that I really could not be who God called me to be, was calling me to be, if I did not accept the fullness of who God made me to be. And that was part of, a big part of you is spirituality. It's not my totality. I'm not just a gay person. I'm a lot of other things too. But acknowledging that part of me and accepting that as something good and wholesome and the way that God intended was really incredibly important part of my own spiritual journey. I remember a counseling session. We were with my therapist. We were talking about kind of discovering kind of the roots of that self-hatred, and he told me to kind of think of a time when you started to realize the goodness that was inherent in who I was. And I remember this, I don't exactly remember the context, but I'm pretty sure it was at St. John's Church in Johnson City. And I'm also and I also know the text for that day was Genesis 1. It's the creation story, and how each day was being related as at the conclusion of the day that God saw that things were good. So each day it was good. And then got to the part where God made human beings, and God saw that they were very good. And I remember hearing the Spirit say, I made you the way you are, and I made you very good. And that was very healing to me. And that's been something that's really has been kind of a turning point in my own spiritual life, is knowing that who I am as a sexual being, and really all the other parts of my being are made very good.
I know a lot of times the things we discover about ourselves open us to being able to help other people discover the same kinds of things. Do you feel like that's really impacted how you are with people, especially finding people, not necessarily gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, though that certainly be included, but people of any kind who are having trouble finding that truth? How's that opened the door for you to that?
I think what I've kind of discovered through my ministry at St. James and with Tyson House, especially Tyson House, has been a ministry of maybe discernment, a ministry of listening, being able to help people to recognize and listen to themselves, listen to that inner voice, listen to the Holy Spirit. Those truths that God has kind of woven into our beings, that the fabric of who we are, and realizing that that's how God has talked to us. That is part of how God has communicated who we are and who we're supposed to be in the world is recognizing who people are, and walking with them and helping them to see that these are really important things to listen to, especially college students who are trying to figure out who they are maybe for the first time away from their parents, who they are studying to be and going out into the world. What is their calling? Not just as ordained clergy. I think we maybe overemphasize calling language when it comes to clergy, but we're all called. We believe in our baptisms that God calls all of us into ministry, and discovering what that means and how God's formed us to be a unique tool, a unique instrument in the world for goodness, and for the sake of for the healing of that we know is the gospel in Jesus. So that's, I think, one way that I have kind of understood how my ministry has been formed by that recognition of my own story. Also, I think, part of another detail, I guess, of my own story is struggling with depression and suicide. And I think that has really given me a sensitivity to those who are struggling with depression and suicidal thoughts. Because there's a part of that you get really good at hiding that inner truth and hiding the struggle that you're going through, that manifests as depression. It can manifest as other things too, but really having gone through that myself, I think that's sensitized me to be able to there's something a little bit more there. Let's how can we bring that out in a safe way? So yeah,
I think what you were just saying about bringing it out in a safe way is so important, whether we're talking about ministry of a clergy or just people entering into situations where they're trying to help people discover the good in themselves. So what do you think is necessary to create a safe space?
Well, there's a lot of factors to it. I think part of that kind of individually is being vulnerable, making it known to that the people that you're trying to talk with or minister to, that you yourself are not, you are someone who you can talk to, that you yourself are a vulnerable person, that you are also human, and making it known that struggling is okay. There's nothing wrong with that, and it's actually normal. I think we live in a society that champions the strong and the winner, and does not lift up the vulnerable, the meek, as something to be emulated. We see in the gospel that Jesus names it as something that is blessed. But I think we all have those vulnerable, meek parts within ourselves that we don't want to show because we don't want to get hurt. And that's just part of being human. Creating a safe environment where we can talk about those things. Confidentiality is part of that. And then someone I often get asked when dealing with folks who want advice for how do I counsel someone who is coming out of the closet, especially younger folks. The younger, the more vulnerable they are. I always encourage folks to, what is a safe environment for them to come out in? And, young people, it's not safe necessarily for them to come out of the closet. Some families is just not a safe place. So that creating that safe place for people, it's also can mean a physically safe environment for them to come out and be who they are, to recognize that truth. And sometimes it honestly just means you got to wait a few years until you could be out of that situation. Surrounding someone with a safety net of network of people who can care for them if something were to happen. So there's a lot of different ways that we can create safety around people and kind of build a hedge, if you will, of safety in order to create that safe place.
I know that sometimes even when people have decided or found their way to come out safely, they're still going to run into people that are important to them who just can't accept where they are. What would you say to people who find themselves in that situation, where they're people that are important friends or important family that just aren't where they are? How did you handle it, and how would you suggest other people handle that?
Well, when I came out to my close friends first, and kind of as an onion peel, kind of farther and farther away. The farthest, like physically away at the time, was my immediate family. They lived back in Virginia, still where I grew up, and I was living in Tennessee at the time. So they were like physically, they were kind of the farthest away, kind of that outer onion peel, onion layer out. So they were the last that I came out to, and I was terrified to come out to them. They still are pretty conservative. And I've always been close with them, and I didn't want to lose that. There's always a potential of, what if they rejected me? What if I don't get to be a part of their lives anymore? So it is always a danger. And I think that, I guess something I've learned about coming out of the closet is that you're never done coming out. You never know how someone's going to relate to you as a gay person. But that could translate in a lot of different ways. It doesn't just have to be LGBT. People come out in different ways about their various truths of who they are. I think maybe as a white person, I don't have to come out as being anything, from the outside, but that inner truth, you do have to reveal that about yourself. And I think that comes out in justice ways and in a lot of different ways. Kind of bringing it back to what our topic was or is for the day, is that I guess in a justice framework, showing who I am, putting a face to an issue, putting a person with a hot topic, often humanizes. It literally puts a face on an issue in ways that people, I think, that have opinions about it, have never really experienced that before. And talking with someone who is gay changes the game. I know it did for my parents, and that's why I was kind of coming back around to that part of my story, is that I honestly don't think my parents had really interacted with any gay people before they talked with me, before I came out to them. And they struggled a lot theologically with how they thought about it. I don't think they thought about it theologically, other than, well, my church has always said this. But their immediate reaction was love and acceptance of me. That was just their gut reaction, and I'm very grateful for that. But they've had to struggle a lot with what that means to them on a theological level. And putting a face on it has, I think, changed the game for them, because they might read scripture one way, but then they know there's a deeper truth there that they want to explore for themselves. And I think that helps people to realize that the world's not black and white. Justice is not black and white. There's a depth of relationship that needs to be explored with justice issues.
Absolutely.
And relating to any kind of, the hot topic of the day is racial justice in our country. Realizing that these are human beings we're talking about, and realizing what kind of relationship do I have with those who are suffering, with those who are being oppressed. And sometimes we discover that I don't have a depth of relationship there, and I need to go and discover that more and enter into a deeper kind of relationship with those who have been marginalized.
Yes. So as we wind up our conversation, what's your last word or words for the day?
I would say that there's a lot of courage that it takes to see in yourself that which God sees in you. Because sometimes we don't like what we see. That we encounter that in a lot of different ways. But realizing that even if we don't like what we see, God sees us and brings us in. And doesn't necessarily, God's not finished with us. God's still perfecting and molding us. And that's part of the salvation story that we're experiencing. That's part of how God is accepting us for who we are, but doesn't accept that we're finished products. I think that in giving us realizing that there's grace in that, that we have room to grow even in our self-truths, and we can hopefully hold that grace and extend that grace out for others as well.
RJ, thank you so much for spending this time with me.
Thank you so much for having me. It's good to see you, Gayle.
You too.